Good morning. Welcome to Real Talks Dominate Real Estate. It's December 11th, 2020, and I'm Charlie Bengel.
And I'm Meaza. Grab a cup of coffee and let's make your real estate career better.
Happy Friday, Eyerusalem. What's in the news this morning?
Happy Friday. So the first thing in this morning headlines is consumers crave digital connection from small businesses, including from real estate firms. A new study finds the COVID-19 outbreak has sparked a greater reliance on digital and mobile tech to do jobs and complete transactions. Moxter, a firm that offers digital solutions, recently surveyed 1,500 small business personnel and 1,500 small business customers across industries, including real estate, about digital offerings and sentiment. 30% of consumers say digital capabilities are a primary requirement when searching for a small business to work with nowadays. 84% of consumers said they'd look to other companies if a firm was lacking in technology use or did not offer a good experience. Further, consumers say that disjointed digital experiences remain top pain point in working with companies. 48% of consumers said they prefer to engage with small business digitally as much as possible and only conduct in-person business when necessary. For example, 89% of small business customers agreed that it was important for them to be able to reach out digitally to small businesses instead of scheduling an appointment or phone call. But the technology must be simple to use as well. 63% of survey respondents said that the number of digital tools and technologies their company uses is making some tasks more complex. Many companies during the pandemic may have adopted a patchwork of technology to enable greater remote work as soon as the pandemic hit. But such band-aid solutions won't suffice over the long haul without a more comprehensive strategy that streamlines and digitally manages business activities, the report adds. In other news, the COVID-19 pandemic and associated shift to working from home have transformed the location and feature requirements of both home buyers and renters, according to companion surveys of more than 1,000 consumers and 600 real estate professionals by Homes.com. The new normal is fueling more moves from cities to suburbs, more long-distance moves, and new space and amenity demands, while also prompting sellers to become more selective in a market where 95% of transactions are receiving multiple offers. The majority of those moves are likely to be permanent, with nearly 3 out of 4 consumers who have moved or planning to move to take advantage of remote work opportunities, reporting that they will not return to their pre-pandemic residences. The long tail of the pandemic is expected to impact agents and brokers at least into 2021 as well. With the virus continuing to batter the country and interest rates remaining low, 57% of respondents to the industry survey expect home buying activity to remain at current robust levels for the next 12 months. An additional 28% predict even more transactions next year. The surveys also found out that 1 out of 3 consumers who moved in the last 12 months did not plan to move before COVID-19 hit. 45% of respondents said that they would move if given the chance to work remotely. The ability to eliminate commuting as a factor in home or rental choices has substantially altered consumers' location requirements. 43% of consumers who have moved or plan to move are relocating more than 100 miles away, with half of those moving over 500 miles. Home feature preferences have shifted substantially during the pandemic, with 78% of real estate professionals citing client requests for home offices as the number one change. Both homeowners and renters are relocating. And last but not least, the seller's market created by the large number of buyers as well as below average inventory has reduced sellers' flexibility. Next is relocating renters are shown an increased desire for more flexible lease terms that don't require a long-term commitment. Compared to last year, the apartment sector has seen a 30% increase in the share of renters searching for leases for 6 months or shorter, according to the Apartment List's fourth quarter renter migration report. The increased interest in short-term leases is fueled by renters looking to leave pricey coastal metros for mid-sized cities and scenic locales, the report notes. Demand for short-term leases is also increasing among those who want to stay in the city where they currently live. In some metros, renters may be searching for short-term leases as a way to escape to another area during the pandemic. Charlie, what's going on with rates?
Thanks, Eyerusalem. Rates continue to be outstanding with 30-year fixed rates at 2.75. The 30-year jumbo is also 2 3/4. FHA is 2.5. VA is 2.75. These are purchase rates in the Washington metro market brought to us by PNC. Back over to you to discuss the market.
In the last week in Hampton Roads, we saw 609 new listings hit the market, 687 properties go pending, and 820 properties sold. In the last week in the Washington metro area, within 30 miles of the White House, we saw 1,197 new listings hit the market, 1,677 go pending, and 1,464 homes sold. Back over to Charlie with our special guest.
Thanks, Eyerusalem. I'd like to welcome back to the show Coach Amy Lassen. Amy, always good to see you.
Hello, good to see you.
Today's topic, where's the market headed? So we were talking before the show about, everybody's curious about this.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk about kind of what we think, and then why don't we share this with our clients? We were also talking about that. So I thought that it was interesting that as part of the earlier news this morning, that Eyerusalem was talking about the Homes.com survey. This was a survey of 1,000 consumers and 600 real estate pros. And they are thinking 57% of the respondents to the survey expect home buying activity to remain at current robust levels for the next 12 months. An additional 28% predict even more transactions next year, which would end up being a great year. So everybody thought when the third week of March hit, and it became obvious that I think that was the week that the NBA shut down, and it was like the cards were all falling, right? We knew as soon as the NBA shut down that it was that there were going to be big changes. So all the other sports followed, and then everybody started going into lockdown, and we didn't even know what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to end up this year actually better than last year when it comes to the actual units sold, which is just extraordinary considering that there were so many markets that were completely out of business for a number of months.
Yeah.
So will we see that growth continue in 2021?
Great question. This is why I'm so excited that we're talking about it. And I kind of wish we had a room full of agents so that we could all sort of fight it out, because there are so many strong opinions. And I think I want to start by clarifying the question. Who's asking, right? When people say, where's this market going? Are they asking for on behalf of their first-time home buyer who can barely afford their rent? Or are they asking on behalf of their spouse agent that they're afraid will go broke? Like, who are we looking to protect here? Because protecting your customer, protecting your client's investment is pretty challenging and not normally our job. Right. So when we help someone buy, when we help someone sell, we're not guaranteeing that everything that comes after makes it sure that it was a good decision, that the timing was perfect, right? So we don't do that. But I think a lot of people, when a lot of agents say to each other, where do you think all this is going? They're not necessarily saying, will my buyer see 5% or 8% appreciation? They're saying, will I close enough deals to stay afloat next year, right? That's normally what they're asking.
Right.
Let's start with that one. Let's just start with the realtors out there, right? Is there enough business for you, and will there be? And the thing that I hope the veterans recognize, and I want the newbies to understand, is within reason. Because if we doubled or tripled the number of agents in any given market, eventually there's just not going to be enough business to go around. But with most of how we are in most of our markets, with the percentage of realtors to consumers for full-time agents, right? So long as you get up early, you do your work, you provide extraordinary service. If the market goes up, if the market goes down, if the market levels off, you have a job to do, right? So we have jobs in every market, and I hope agents understand that. It's up to us to sharpen our tools and to really guide people in the best possible way. Dealing with correction is a unique challenge, whatever that correction is. So I think that's the first thing that I want to really clear up. When you say, what if the market tanks? What does that mean for realtors? Well, it means you need a new set of skills, right? Not that
Yeah,
I
no. I mean, we've got some agents that have already said that they're preparing to be able to do short sales again,
Yep.
to be able to do foreclosures again. They feel like there's going to be, you know, a glut of foreclosures. I hope they're wrong. I
Yeah.
hope that we learned our lesson from the Great Recession, when clearly foreclosing on people and throwing them out of their house was not good for anybody, right? It resulted in neighborhoods turning downward from appearance to price. To, you know, I mean, you remember the stories of, you know, your neighbor's got grass 3 feet tall and the bank owns it and they won't have it cut. And I mean, it's just a whole mess. So hopefully the powers that be, you know, are able to, you know, to work that out and to kind of stem those challenges. But then you've also got, you know, the challenges of tenants that have not been paying their rent, and there have been moratoriums on evictions there. And you've got some, you know, most people that own investment properties are not large financial firms. They're mom and pops, and they have mortgages on these properties, and it's challenging for them if the tenant's not paying their rent because they still have to pay their expenses.
Absolutely.
So there's that too. So getting back into the, if there's major market changes, will you need new skills? Like, yes,
Yes.
that's quite possible. I think it depends on where you are. I think that, and you know, it also, it feels odd to me that we're often talking about, you know, another record-breaking year of home sales when there's so many people unemployed, when there's so many people scared to death that there's not going to be another stimulus, that they're not going to be able to put food on the table next month. So, you know, I think that we need to at least acknowledge that there's this tale of two worlds in a way. You know, the stock market is on fire, and yet, you know, there's a food bank that's close to my house down in West Palm Beach, and the line is longer than it's really ever been. I mean, the first time right after the pandemic hit, I didn't understand why all these cars were at this place, and then I finally figured it out. And it's like every Wednesday, I think it is, there's just hundreds of cars.
Yep.
So, you know, you've got this kind of tale of two worlds, and hopefully the politicians will be able to figure something else out there. But as real estate agents, we still need to be able to move our business forward, and we need to be able to put you know, food on the table for our families.
Mm-hmm.
And for some people, you may need to be prepared to tweak your skills a little bit if we need to start getting into, we need to start getting into short sales and foreclosures again. In
Right.
some markets, I think you're going to see that, you know, far more than other markets. Orlando is just, I mean, big problems in Orlando, right? You've got people that own homes and they've not had a job. They've been laid off. And what are all the jobs in Orlando? They're all tourism jobs.
Right.
So is Orlando going to see short sale foreclosure issues? I would guess, you know, is the Metro DC market where there's more higher paying white collar jobs that are backed by the government. You're not seeing the feds laying people off and furloughing yet, right? So are we going to have as big of a problem there? Maybe not. Or maybe it's going to take a few years to trickle down. That we don't know.
Sure.
But I think, you know, you and I have been spending a lot of time on business planning recently. You know, what's your business plan look like?
Yeah.
And if you're in a market that maybe perhaps you need to be considering short sales and foreclosures, is that in your plan?
Yeah.
And do you remember how to do it? Has anything changed? Right? Do you need to sharpen your skills?
Yeah.
Or are you new and you don't even know what a short sale is because we haven't had to deal with them since really the Great Recession? There have been some stragglers, right? You know, but for the most part, short sales are really, really rare right now.
Yes.
So I think that a lot of this, bringing up a good point, getting back, looking at your plan, is the plan realistic going into next year? If next year is like this year, but more stable, right?
Yeah.
We don't just stop selling homes in April, right? Is your plan going to work, or are you in a place that you need to go a little bit deeper and really look at those lead sources? Are the lead sources realistic?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you made a super good point about what market are you in, right? So we are year over year, we are 17% up average home price.
That's crazy. Yeah.
It's crazy. So I honestly don't expect a severe correction here. And it's not because I'm overly optimistic. It's because there is so much pent up demand.
Mm-hmm.
we have a ways to go before we
Right.
can burn through the number of people looking to buy here.
Yep.
So that's the reason I feel like Colorado Springs is not going to see a serious correction. I did come upon, and honestly, Charlie, before this show, I wish I had done my due diligence. Although on this topic, and we'll talk about this too, how can you do enough research to be the oracle who knows all things, right? It's just, seriously, the brightest investors in the world don't have a crystal ball.
Right.
So but I came upon this guy he works for the Rich Dad Poor Dad organization, and he was apparently debunking this other young guy who talks about market trends all the time. And he was insisting that we are headed for a serious correction at the end of 2021. And he had all sorts of sites that he was promoting, one that shows the default rates per state and all kinds of things. And what I saw in that is there are opportunities potentially nationwide for investors to look at markets that will be softer than others. But for the average among us, for the average agent, for the average consumer, right? Agents just want to close their deals, right? They just want to close their 3 deals a month and go home to their kids.
Right.
And the average consumer wants a nice place to live and to not feel that they are living beyond their means, that they're not house poor.
Right.
So I think all the other nuances where we say, yeah, but what if you could find out that such and such state is having, the biggest correction, you go buy rental properties. Well, okay, that's a thing. But the most of us, that's not where we are.
Right.
So I think that for most of us, today's topic is, can I stay in business? I think the answer is absolutely yes. You always have to be providing value and sharpening your skills. But then the next question is, for my buyers, is it a good time to buy? So, in some of the markets where you are, Charlie, 40,000 above asking, and not just, gosh, I had one coaching client. She was very young. Her clients, this is the other coast in Washington State, they didn't just put in that health and safety clause about how we're only going to look for big ticket items or whatever with the inspection. They waived their right to have an inspection.
Yeah, that's common in DC too.
Well, there's a lawsuit pending now. I mean, this house needed to be inspected.
Okay.
So when we talk about, okay, here I am, I'm the buyer's agent, right? We're swinging for the fence. We've got to go 40,000 over. We've got to waive our rights to even look close at this thing we're buying for $900,000.
Right.
So then we say, where's this market headed, right? I think everybody could do a better job of the buyer strategy session up front. First things first, we got to set better expectations.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah. So first things first, set better expectations with the buyer. And everybody, Charlie, you and I've talked about this so many times. We get so much pushback. I did. No, you didn't. I asked if they wanted me to. They said, no, thank you. Do it. And I had somebody say to me the other day, Charlie, that 20 pages is too many. So I just showed them mine. I'm like, look, and they showed me theirs. They're like, see, this is so fluffy. I'm like, there's no fluff in mine, and it's massively long.
Right.
There's zero fluff. So really educate them about the trends, to show them the market trends, and ask them what they're comfortable with, right? Don't wait until they've fallen in love with a house to say, are you willing to waive your rights and pay more than you can afford, right? So we've got to do a good job of educating the buyer way up front. Now, when the buyer says to you, what do you think? Like, I'll just wait. Right? We've got people now who have maybe 15 buyers in the pipeline who are saying, I'll just wait. We'll just see how it goes in the spring. So how can you? I learned this from my stockbroker. He said, you cannot time the market.
Right.
You can only invest in the market over time.
Yep.
And I started thinking about that with regard to real estate. And I've shared before, I have a buddy, a real estate friend who is very well invested in real estate himself. And I've shared that I helped my daughter buy a very modest home. We paid top dollar for a 130-year-old house with one bathroom. And I finally, a year later, got to show it to my friend who lives in the same neighborhood. He lives in the same part of our county as my daughter. And I showed him the house, and he congratulated me. He's like, yep, this is good. Good choice. Good purchase. And I said, but here's the terms. And I laid it all out. And I said, do you think I overpaid? And he raised his voice. He yelled at me. He said, who cares? Because his attitude is, get in the market. Get in the market. Can she afford the payment or not? Right? Now, maybe that's confident to say, who cares? Who cares if it goes up or down? But really, if you can barely afford the payment and you're planning to move in a year, I don't think you have any business buying.
Agreed.
I don't. So if you can afford the payment And if this is a long-term vision, markets go up and markets go down. Many years ago, my younger sister had a home built custom, wasn't custom, by a tract home builder.
Mm-hmm.
I protested vehemently. I hated this builder. I told her my opinion. She completely disagreed with me. She said, no, they're really high end. And I was thinking, is it different in different markets? Like, I know this builder. Like, so she built she paid quite a bit for a large home. I didn't even think they built homes that big, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it turns out, by the way, I was right. They were terrible, and she ended up having problems. But the story is also that she paid top dollar at the top of the market, and then we had a serious correction nationwide, right? So I'm patting myself on the back the whole time that I was right. I'm watching this big home. She's having trouble with it. It's going down in value. We all saw the crash, as we call it.
Yeah.
And the whole time I'm congratulating myself that I was right. Well, then the market went back up, and God knows what it's worth now. And the explosion that all markets are experiencing now started in Denver about 6 years ago. Like, they've been out of control for a while. All the while, she lived a happy life. She raised her family. She ran her business, and she didn't overthink it.
Right.
Okay. So when I think about my friend who yells at me and says, "Who cares?" Right? Get in the market and live your life. And
well,
so
you're going to be paying somebody's mortgage.
Right.
It might as well be yours and not the guy that owns the apartment building.
Yes. And so that gets us to rent versus own, right?
Yeah.
I think you can always look at that. So when you have a buyer who says, "I'm going to wait," don't ever argue with them because you have commission breath, right?
Right.
Don't say, "Are you sure? Maybe you should buy sooner." Now you just sound like a jerk, right? So always affirm them and say, "Great, thanks for telling me. Tell me what you're looking for. Tell me what you're expecting to see happen in the market." They may say, "I don't know. I'm just hoping it goes down." And say, "Yeah, that'd be helpful, right? If the market went down, maybe we'd all have more opportunities. Let's do some math. Let's help you be prepared for what you're looking for." Really go through it with them. And here's a couple of things that we're going to consider. If they think that come summer, homes will be considerably less, well, I don't think anybody's expecting considerable. I think they're hoping for something, right?
Yep.
So when we talk about, will the rate change, right? Rates are so crazy low right now. It's what we call in the biz free money. Like, this is ridiculous. So when you look at their payment, I would encourage them not to look at the whole price. Like, let's say they're hoping the $500,000 house they can get for $480,000. It's just, that's just not real money. It's not. And so when we look at how that would affect a payment, so you can say, well, here's the situation with the payment. Here's what that looks like. And then we look at how much does waiting benefit them, right? Maybe Charlie, you and I have all seen the transactions that blew up over $500.
Yep.
They couldn't come to terms over a broken window and the whole thing blew up.
Right.
And I started trying to educate my buyers up front about that's not real money. An appraiser can't get you more accurate. An appraiser can't tell you a house is worth $562.49 and 60 cents.
Right.
That's not real. Pricing is subjective to the demand. Right?
Yeah, I agree. And we know that, speaking of rates, we know that as the economy improves, rates are going to go up. It is inevitable. Is that going to be in March? Is it going to be in September? Is it going to be in 2022? We don't know, but we do know that being able to purchase at 2 3/4 or 2.5 for a freaking 30-year fixed rate, that is not going to last, right? And I think that you have to look at, like you were mentioning a minute ago, what's worth more over time. If your price dips by a few $1,000s, I mean, maybe somebody misprices a house, nobody goes to see it, and they end up lowering the price, and people aren't paying attention, and you get a deal. It's not really, that's not really what we're seeing in most markets. We're still seeing this feeding frenzy, and I don't think that, I don't think that that's going to go away.
Yeah.
Unless something catastrophic happens. But I mean, can it get any worse than COVID? I mean, we talk about catastrophes, right? I mean, is it really going to be worse? So yeah, I just, the people that are, I feel like the people that are afraid of the commitment. There's more to it.
Yes.
Right. Oh, I want a deal, but it's really, I'm scared to death of this commitment, right? If I'm renting, I can always quickly move to a smaller place or, get out of my lease and go and move in with mom, 30-year mortgage, that's a whole different story. So I think that going back to that buyer consult, peeling the layers of the onion back and asking more questions as you're getting these objections or people that say that they want to wait. And I get that, there's buyers out there that are sick. They're just sick of, I've written 8 offers, right? But were they prepared for that? I would argue in most cases, the answer was no.
In
They
most
weren't.
cases, no.
Right.
And the other thing is, in the 6 months that they've been doing this and getting sick of it,
Prices are going up.
Going up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right. And you've got some people that are getting priced out of what they wanted, which is a whole other level of frustration that I get. But I just think, I want to wait another year. Okay, but you're going to be paying more, and chances are, are rates going to be like this a year from now? I don't think so. I think they're going to be up at least a little bit. I just, because we're going to be getting out of the pandemic, people that want the vaccine, even younger folks like us, right, that are almost last in line, will have the vaccine by late summer if we want it, supposedly, right? So we're going to see more things open up, and there's going to be pain before then. But a year from now, you'd think that most places that will be able to reopen, some won't, will be reopen. And it'll be a totally different winter next year for restaurants than we're about to have now, right? This disaster that they're all encountering. So, and we know that there's going to be inflation pressure and this and that, and they're going to have to end up raising rates. I just even if it's a little bit. And then how much equity are you throwing away by waiting? Right, with the price increase and then the supposed increase. I think it was Brian Block, one of the managers in our company. He did a chart he called it the cost of waiting, and it was a guesstimate. Right, if you paid now, interest rates now. If you waited a year, what would the payment be? What would the interest rates be? What is the cost of waiting? And then you're also losing the opportunity for some people. Tax deductions, depending on how you're doing your taxes now. But then you've also got the opportunity of just paying down the mortgage ever so slightly the first year. It's mostly interest. I get it, right? But you're building some equity just by paying down some principal, and you're losing out on that too by waiting a year or 2 or 5 years or whatever. So.
Oh my goodness, did we lose Charlie? All right, I'm going to say something because I think he's frozen. So here's the thought that I have about waiting. In my market, as I shared, we are at 17% increase year over year. Let's pick a much lower number. Let's pick, because everybody's in a slightly different market. Let's say in this crazy high demand market, we're at 10% up. And if you imagine that a year from now, you could see 10% appreciation. So let's say we have a client who's looking at a $400,000 house, and that may be laughably low in the market that you're in. But let's say they're looking for a $400,000 house. And if we see a 10% increase, that's $40,000 that it will go up over 12 months. That's $20,000 that it could go up over 6 months. So when you have that client right now who says, I'm just going to wait, I'm just going to see if prices come down, it's, I would be happy for my buyers if that were the case, but I think having it level off is not the same as having remarkable bargains available. So what I recommend to everyone is that you do a really, really good job of educating your buyers up front about what their options are, help to allay their fears so that they can make wise choices for themselves. When markets are appreciating, that's the reason you get above asking, is because you have to sort of look ahead. Comps, the sold comps don't tell you the value. You have to be predicting. And for that client who just keeps barely missing, their opportunities become at a higher and higher price point. So you have to encourage your client to really get ahead of that so that they really can be under contract. Start, having the tax savings of interest, having that money go toward principal rather than rent, and be in the market. Be in the market over time. I say it, I'm in the market, I'm a believer. So those of you who don't do a buyer presentation, please watch previous shows. Please go to Dominate Real Estate or theallegianceway.com and check out the resources we provide to RE/MAX Allegiance agents and agents everywhere for doing a better job of educating buyers. They really, really need us. I think they really need us, and I don't see this market crashing. I do hope to see it level off in some markets. Mine probably won't be one of them. I hope to see you all. When is our next show, Eyerusalem? When will we see everybody next?
Next Friday, the 18th.
Wonderful. Hope to see everybody then.
All right. Thank you so much all for watching, and hope that you have a wonderful weekend.